Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'll be flying on a Delta Airlines Boeing 737-800 series in the first class cabin out of LaGuardia Airport. Come along for the flight. Dropped off one bag and now I'm going to go through security. Terminal C is seeing its final days as Delta rebuilds its terminal to a more modern and upgraded building, and what you're seeing here won't be around for much longer. Don't forget to check out some of my other videos that document the progress of the construction on this side of the airport. I'll take you around the terminal a bit before I board my flight. I'm now in the food hall, just picking up a few items prior to my flight. Even though my ticket is in first class, I always stock up at the food hall and grab a bite in the Delta Sky Club because during the pandemic, onboard service is limited. Onto the Delta Sky Club for a little bit. Food is complimentary at the Delta Sky Club, and I've noticed that as the pandemic seems to be winding down, the food options are improving. The selections were better than my visit of just 1 month before. I especially enjoyed the Herbes de Provence vegetable bisque, the package of fresh corn, and the key lime mousse pot. Knowing that on my flight I'd only get a snack box, I took advantage of what was offered here. The 737 that I'll be flying on today was delivered directly to Delta and is almost 20 years old. Delta 737s have not been a common sight here at LaGuardia, so I'm actually quite excited to fly in this aircraft type. Delta seems to be mixing up the fleets a lot here at LaGuardia, so it's exciting to be able to try different types of airplanes, and it's also on a route that I fly very often. Normally this route is operated by an A320 type aircraft. Time to head out of the Sky Club and over to my gate here at the C Terminal at LaGuardia. Thank you. Bye now. My gate today is C34, and that's just a very short walk from the Delta Sky Club here at the C Terminal. The airport is actually not very crowded today. It's now time to board. "737, here I come." I had the opportunity to board with the first boarding group and was handed a Purell wipe by a flight attendant. The trip to my seat was short as I booked row 1, seat D. With a width of just under 21 inches, the 16 first-class seats are very comfortable. Made on board the Boeing 737-800. Check out the size of that window. A lot larger than the Airbus aircraft that I normally fly on. That aircraft there is another 737, identical to the aircraft that I'm on right now. Replacing the Boeing 737-400, the 737-800 is similar to but larger than the 737-700 and falls into the 737 Next Generation category. Currently, Delta only has the -800 and 900 series in their 737 fleet. There are around 5,000 737-800s flying around the world, and it's the most popular variant of the Boeing 737. It's powered by 2 CFM turbofan engines and has a fuel burn of 850 gallons of jet fuel per hour. It has a range of around 3,500 miles and a wingspan of 113 feet. It's similar in size to an Airbus A320, which is considered to be its main rival. The IFE on this aircraft is actually quite small. The entertainment system on this plane is definitely older than others, with smaller screens and buttons in the armrest that are not in use anymore, but much of the cabin has been retrofitted for a more modern look, including the overhead panels for air conditioning and individual reading lights. Here, there are 3 air vents and 3 lights just for 2 seats. Almost ready for pushback. The ground crew efficiently loaded the final set of bags for an on-time departure, and a few moments later the boarding door was closed and the safety demonstration began. During the time of this recording, LaGuardia was averaging around 200 departures per day. That's an increasing number since the pandemic downturn, but still a lot less than 2019 numbers. With virtually no traffic congestion on the ramp, it was very easy to push back and taxi to the runway. Nowadays, LaGuardia feels like a smaller city airport, but traffic will continue to pick up again, and the new terminal layout will help ease some of the surface delays. Here, we're looking at the original gate area that we just pushed back from in the C terminal. On top of the terminal is the Delta ramp control tower that's monitoring our flight pushing back. Soon, the LaGuardia Airport control tower will issue us taxi clearance to runway 13.
You're seated. In case of sudden rough air, in the event of rough air, the crew might also need to buckle up for safety. We apologize if this...
Once the tow truck was removed from the aircraft, we started our taxi on Taxiway Alpha. We can see a 737 and A320 parked at the gates. Even though the departure runway is behind us, we had to head east for a bit to get to Taxiway Mike, where we will turn around to Taxiway Bravo, which will bring us to runway 13. I didn't mind the extra turns as this provided some great views of the new construction. Here you can clearly see the C Terminal's new concourse, which is getting closer to completion every single day. It looks like Delta's parking a regional jet on the ramp next to it. As we turn onto Taxiway Mike, you can see the old D Terminal and the new G gates in the distance. There's a lot of work going on there too. We're going to take Taxiway Bravo all the way to runway 13, and we'll be paralleling the runway for the rest of this taxi. With hardly any traffic in front of us, it was a really quick trip to the runway. Taxiway delays had always been a major reason for delays at LaGuardia, but not now during the pandemic. My flight actually landed in Minneapolis about 30 minutes early. Within just a few moments, we passed by the famous Welcome to New York sign, and without any delays, we crossed runway 422 as there were no arriving aircraft to interfere with our direct path to the runway. We're now turning onto runway 13 via Taxiway Papa. Runway 13 is 7,003 feet long and heads towards Flushing Bay. We'll fly a standard noise abatement climb after takeoff with several turns as we're right in the middle of New York City. And just as we become airborne, we'll be able to get a great view of the construction of the C and D terminals. Let's take off on runway 13. I hope you're enjoying this video. Please take a moment to consider liking and subscribing to my channel, and don't forget to hit that little bell button so that you're made aware of every time I post a new video for you.
Delta 93, wind 20010, runway 13, still takeoff.
Over there, 13, Delta 9, easy.
And we are now rolling on runway 13. LaGuardia Tower issues takeoff clearance on runway 13 between arriving flights, but at the time of takeoff, there were no arriving flights at all, so we were given a quick takeoff clearance and crossed the arrival runway without any conflict. Here we can see the FAA control tower and Terminal B. Terminal B is now among the few terminals in the world to have a pedestrian bridge over an active ramp area. I still can't get over how much this airport is changing. We're now by Delta's terminals C and D as we become airborne, and we can clearly see all of the ongoing construction. I have many videos documenting the construction here, so don't forget to check them out.
Delta 983, counting park.
We're now turning to a southern heading to fly over Flushing Meadows Corona Park, avoiding a noise-sensitive neighborhood. As we turn back, we get an impressive view of the entire airport. Here you can see all of the terminals and all of runway 13 just over the 737's right wing, which is outfitted with a winglet. What a great sound those 737 engines make, especially from up front. We're climbing over the New York City borough of Queens, and in the distance you can see the skyscrapers of Manhattan Island. We took off in the opposite direction of our destination of Minneapolis and St. Paul, but we're going to continue our climb out in a left turn, which will bring us towards the north. Since traffic is so light today, our turn is actually going to be a near full circle and will ultimately point us toward the northwest, which is the direction that we want to head in to get to Twin Cities. Here's that turn sped up. As our wings level off, we fly over the East River with a great view of the New York City borough of the Bronx. We're practically right over LaGuardia Airport, which is where we started from, but because of the complexities of the airspace, we had to spend some extra time in the airport vicinity before we could head on course. While on this heading, we fly over the northern portions of Manhattan and over the Hudson River into the state of New Jersey. Here is a fantastic view of Teterboro Airport in northern New Jersey. It's time to turn our attention to inside this 737 as flight attendants prepare for the first class service, which included beverages and boxed snacks. A variety of drinks were offered, this time on a menu, but I went with my usual, a bottle of water. It was nice to have a menu handed to me. I had not seen that before. On one side of the menu were drinks, and on the other side were the contents of 2 snack boxes. I chose one, and the flight attendant promptly handed a box to me. In this cabin, the tray table is located in the armrest, and it folds over the passenger's lap and can be used as a half-tray position if desired. I used the Purell wipe that the flight attendant handed me at boarding to wipe down the surface of the tray table. And here are the contents of the box that I chose, the bistro box. The box was sealed and I had to open it myself, as were all of the other contents due to the ongoing pandemic. I don't know why it's called a bistro box, because the food did not make me feel like I was eating in a bistro, but I did not mind the safety precautions that Delta is taking. Eventually, these boxes should be replaced by the pre-pandemic hot meals, but for now, I'll take what they give me. Since I ate enough at the Sky Club at LaGuardia, I just wound up taking these snacks with me. You can't do that with a hot meal. The moving map on the in-flight entertainment screen on the 737 is not as good as other aircraft types and seemed to lack detail, but it at least provided for situational awareness, as I always knew where I was. On the flight today, we flew a slightly more southern route than normal. The map helped me identify Northumberland and Sunbury, Pennsylvania below. After flying by Mosquito Creek Lake in Ohio, the next major city was Cleveland, Ohio, which is on the southern shore of Lake Erie. We flew right over the top of the downtown area. Next up was a quick visit to the first-class lavatory at the front of the plane. This lavatory is dedicated to first-class passengers only. Additional lavatories are located in the rear. The 737 lavatory is very similar to other narrow-body aircraft, and in addition to soap, first-class passengers also get hand lotion. Even though it's a small room, I never felt like it was too tight. I really like the blue lighting inside. As I was in the lab, the seatbelt sign came on, and I quickly returned to my seat for some turbulence, but I hardly felt anything. Let's take another look around the first row of this plane. Overhead bin space is ample, and the first row has its own dedicated bin. The first row bulkhead seat provided enough legroom for me, and I was able to get out even with the seat next to me occupied. Recline is accomplished by pressing this button, but I never recline my seat unless on a red-eye. The seat itself is extra wide and comfortably padded. I had plenty of maneuverability space. The TV monitors, however, are rather small, but I hardly use them as I'm more attuned to the view out the window, and I always use the in-flight Wi-Fi. We've got less than an hour to go before landing in Minneapolis, and before I knew it, we received clearance from ATC to descend. We're going to land on runway 12 right today, and we're following a standard terminal arrival route before we receive radar vectors from ATC to the final approach course. The high-altitude controllers of Minneapolis Center will hand us to the Terminal Radar Approach Control Facility, or TRACON, before handing us over to the control tower. It's a very well-coordinated process. I enjoyed my flight on the 737-800. It had been a really long time since I'd been on one, as Airbus airplanes had been featured on most of the routes that I needed to fly, so it was exciting to be back. I wish all Airbus planes had windows as large as the 737. Here's the final approach to runway 12 right at MSP. I'll speed it up a bit. Runway 12 right is MSP's longest runway at 10,000 feet long and 200 feet wide. That's more than enough space to stop this 737-800 today. The runway has a heading of around 120 degrees and is parallel with runway 12 left, which is on the other side of Terminal 1. We'll eventually work our way to that other side, as our gate will be in the D concourse, but MSP is a very efficient airport and we'll be at the gate very quickly. And here's the taxi to the D gates. We begin by the very long G concourse. This is followed by the F concourse, which extends from the main structure of the terminal building. Next up is the E concourse, which houses a variety of airlines other than Delta. The D gates are up next. The D gates consist of 6 gates around one central rectangular holding room which protrudes from the main structure. As we approach the gate, the ground crew takes position to guide us in, and once we're stopped, our plane is unloaded and prepped for the next flight. My experience was very enjoyable, and I can't wait to fly on a 737-800 again. Alright, I'm in the terminal now at the Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport. That's my 737-800 behind me. Thanks so much for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.